Hey friends. So I'm having an experience. I'm in my car because it's my daughter's piano lesson. This is my Monday post now, at least for one more week when things will change again. But I've been having an experience today, and I need to I'm processing still. I have not arrived anywhere near what I would call a conclusion or an insight about it. But so to kind of walk my way into the conundrum that I'm facing, or the kind of question that I'm facing, I had a conversation with some colleagues slash friends, and we're talking about a thing we're doing together, a presentation, and I'm looking at what we're presenting, how it's likely to land with the people receiving it, what the whole how provocative it's going to be, basically how much people are going to be reacting against what we're talking about, and to what degree they'll be really amenable and really sort of enthusiastic even. And there's every reason to believe that there could be quite a variety of responses. So anyway, but I'm talking to my friends, and we're talking about how explicit to be with our own position. In other words, we agree that we want to open a space of conversation that allows everyone to be where they are, both in terms of their understanding of the content of what we're talking about, and in terms of their opinions and their perspectives, how they feel, what they actually might want or not want, or gravitate towards, or gravitate or be repelled by. We know we want to open a space where everyone can experience that and can feel where they're at, and share that in an environment that where it won't feel like they're either getting the answer wrong, or that they should know more, they should be more familiar with the material. We want to create as open and inviting and sort of like shared learning a space as possible. Okay, so that's what we agree on. The question that's coming up for me is, well, I have a particular bias within this conversation. I have a particular opinion, and my quandary is not so much whether or not I should come in swinging with my bias or with my opinion. I know that that's not what I want to do. It's not the effect that would have is not the effect that I want to have. So I'm clear on all that. The confusion comes for me when I start to think about, well, even just internal to myself and people with whom I feel very comfortable sharing my bias and my opinions, and my friends today that I was talking to, how much should I just allow my bias to speak? I shouldn't really be calling it a bias, it's an opinion, it's a perspective. How much should I be allowing that to speak? And how much should I be genuinely striving to soften and hold gently the opinion that I have. And it seems like a kind of a nitpicky, unnecessary question on some level, as I say it out loud. But the fact is, the reason that this tied me up in knots is that there was a difference of opinion, or a differing kind of sense of this within the group that I was in, within just my small group of friends. It was like I started to doubt myself. I was like, wait, should I be more neutral? And I think the reason that it is a question is that on some level, in order to steward a conversation effectively, there's a certain neutrality required, right? There's a certain kind of, I mean, that's why we have political debates moderated by non-biased commentators. We're, at least ideally, the idea is that we want to create a conversation that genuinely makes space for two sides to an opinion, or as many sides as there are people, because that debate and sharing all of that ultimately increases the depth. It increases the depth of thought that we're able to arrive at collectively. My problem is coming up because I'm wondering to what degree is it disingenuous to be pretending to be neutral about something that I'm not neutral about? And to what degree is mitigating my own perspective even really effective? Because I can of course intellectually decide to not to say certain things, not to share certain things, not to have certain responses, to essentially assume a position of neutrality. But that's ultimately not where I really am. And it's like, I think what this is coming down to for me, what I'm starting to kind of see in this, is that there's a distinction between, you know, my role as a participant in a conversation and my role as a steward of the conversation. So in other words, am I playing a role as an individual voicing an opinion in the mix? Or am I playing a role as someone who is creating the space for the conversation? And that is what I think, really, having now spoken about this for 9 minutes, I've found my way to at least an answer, which is that the first question I asked doesn't really have, or if that was even a clear question, but my question about, like, well, how much should I allow my own perspective or my own bias to speak? That question has sort of resolved itself into a different set of questions, which is, you know, what role am I playing? Because depending on which role I'm playing, there's a completely different answer to those questions, to that one question. There's a completely different answer, because the role is what determines how what we express is interpreted. If we're stewards of the conversation, then our job is to truly make space and create possibilities for interaction. Whereas if I'm simply a participant, if I'm just one person in the mix, then it's more like, okay, well, say what you think. That's what we're here to do, is contribute our own responses, our own feelings about things. That's what we're here to do. So but the thing is, those two things are kind of different. They're not the same thing. It's not the same role. And a confusion about those roles is potentially dangerous, because we have expectations of people who are stewards of conversation in those kinds of positions, and whose job it is to hold that space. We need those people to do that job. So we want to know if we're one of them or not, right? That's kind of significant. It's like if you show up to a theater workshop, you're gonna act different if you're running it versus if you're participating, right? I mean, like, the most basic, obvious level, that role determines what we contribute. And that is something that, it's interesting, because I have thought about in this particular instance, but in many instances, I think about, what do I want? Like, what's my outcome here, right? What do I want from this interaction? What do I want from this project? What do I want from this conversation, etc.? But I don't always think about, what is my role? I do when it's obvious, but I don't when it's not so obvious, or when there's a choice that I'm sometimes I'm making a choice about my role, and it's kind of like, maybe it's a somewhat conscious choice, but maybe it's a little bit unconscious. I'm just assuming that I know what my role is, but I haven't really reflected that deeply on it. And this is really making me think, that's the most important question to answer. If I can answer the question, what role am I playing here? Then I can be building my actions and my responsibilities, building my contributions on the basis of what my job actually is, not on the basis of some question in my mind about what's the right thing to do, what's the right way to do this. Well, that's you can't know that without the context of the role I'm playing in the context. So it's good. Every once in a while I do a post like this where I just kind of spin my wheels around a question that I can't answer, and I almost always come up with something deeper than what I had before. So, and this is an important one. This is one that, like, it matters. I think it will have an influence on a lot of, I've got at least 3 more things this week that I can think of where that will really matter. It will really be relevant for me to ask the question, what's my role here, before I ask the question, what do I want from this, or what's my outcome? Role, because that's the kind of thing where we may have less control over. Our role might be already predetermined, or it might not. There may be room to choose. I can think of at least one instance in the next week or so when I can choose. This is how there may be an array of options, but this is how I want to choose to be. I want to choose to kind of embody. This is the role I want to embody in this situation. It's going to tell me a lot about what kind of outcome I'm trying to produce. So, thanks for watching, people. Appreciate you. If this sparks anything, send me a comment. But thanks for watching. I'll see you very soon.